Welcome to this edition of Drugs, Crime, and Politics, brought to you by the Drug Policy Forum of Texas. My name is Dean Becker, and I want to thank the DPFT for this opportunity. I'm a former cop. I'm currently working as a newsman at KPFT Radio, 90.1 FM here in Houston. I produce 9 radio programs per week for 63 affiliate stations based in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. I interview cops, judges, wardens, prosecutors, any and everybody willing to talk about this subject. I've invested more than 20,000 hours investigating this policy of drug prohibition. 5 years ago, I joined LEAP, LEAP.cc, and we have now more than 10,000 supporting members, more than 100 speakers who speak to various governmental agencies and fraternal organizations, churches, schools, anybody who asks us to talk on this subject. We have, over the years, spoken to approximately 100,000 people in this regard. And what do we want to talk about today? And I hope to bring your involvement into this. I hope you'll pick up the phone and give us a call here in a minute. This is an issue whose time has come. But under the current situation, drug dealers want to recruit your children to either use their products or to help sell drugs to other children. And the Mexican cartels are making their way into our state to take over the retail end of the drug distribution chain, because after all, that is where the lion's share of the profit is. Over the lifetime of this drug war, we've invested more than $1 trillion in trying to stop the flow of drugs. And over the same time frame, we've given more than $10 trillion to continue the flow of these drugs. And these $10 trillion have gone into the coffers of the Taliban, who currently makes about $500 million per year. It flows to these barbarous cartels down in Mexico, who make $20 to $30 billion per year. And about half of that, 10 to 15 billion, goes to corrupt, bribe, and otherwise influence border guards, customs officials, U.S. Army forces, cops, mayors, etc. LEAP, my law enforcement against group, and the Drug Truth Network are calling for an end to this now 94-year-old progress problem. We want to tax, regulate, and actually control the distribution of these drugs for adults. We'll still have plenty of room in prison. In fact, we'll have lots of room in prison to hold anyone who would dare sell drugs to our children. I'm here to open this dialogue. And again, pick up the phone, give us a call. I want to hear your concerns. I spend my life trying to find anyone within government, within the clergy, any politician who would step forward and defend this policy of drug prohibition. Now, that request goes out to the drug czar, it goes down through the governor's office, it goes down to all the various law enforcement officials that like this drug war, because it is what makes them meet their mortgage payment. And what we have to do is stop and take a look at this. My number one question, should I ever get a chance to talk to the drug czar, would be, can you name the number one success of the drug war? And I think after 100 years, there ought to be something they can point to. But there is nothing. It has failed in every aspect. The drug warriors, those who thrive on eternal drug war, as I said, refuse to debate me. And what I want to point out is each year here in America, we arrest 1.8 million nonviolent U.S. citizens. And this comes with the destruction of these 1.8 million individuals' families, lives, their fortunes, and their futures. Because once you have that conviction, what happens is you have to serve your time, then you come out, you're barred from getting a license for many professional organizations, you're barred from getting an education, you can't get credit, you can't get housing, and you can't get a job. So the only people waiting in the wings, so to speak, is the black market in drugs, waiting to entice them to come back, waiting to bring them back into the fold, because it's the only job that's available many times for these people who have a drug conviction. So what we have to do is stop. Think about, what are we trying to do with this drug war? 100 years, yet drugs are cheaper, purer, more freely available to our children than ever before. How is that a success? And why do we continue doing the same thing forever. It was Albert Einstein who told us that doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the very definition of insanity. So I'm asking you to please pick up the phone, give us a call, 713, no, I don't have, no, there it is, 713-807-1794. I'd really like to talk with you. You know, who's responsible for this? We have a situation where this United States Office of National Drug Control Policy, the ONDCP, they have this guy appointed to the head of that. He's called the drug czar, the director of the ONDCP. And they have some 780 outlets, if you will, urine testers and treatment centers and, you know, police associations, but all of these people that stand in support of the ONDCP and their efforts. And who do the major press call upon when they're looking for an opinion? They go to these people that run the treatment centers and the urine testing, the prosecutor and the police chief, all of these people who benefit from the continuance of this policy. You know, cops and doctors and scientists and all the other experts, those in the ancillary positions of authority, the working man of the drug war, make sure their mortgage payments are met as well and their retirement assured by joining in the feast of the drug war. Their meat is spewing tales of dread and woe, knowing full well their lies will pay the bills, and the agony that ensues from their intervention will be disguised to support their contentions regarding the harms of drugs. I've tried so many times to find one drug warrior brave enough to do this. They just can't do this. So what I would submit is this drug war will be over when we cease our infantile acceptance of the pronouncements of these false saviors whose true desire is to forever govern our minds, our bodies, and our very lives. When push comes to shove, these drug warriors dare not take the battlefield. There's absolutely nothing to fear except your own acceptance of eternal defeat, because that's the real bread and butter of these drug warriors. Let's end drug prohibition. Here's an article from Mr. Ethan Nadelman. He runs the Drug Policy Alliance. It's perhaps the world's largest drug reform organization. He talks about the 75th anniversary of 1933. It was the repeal of the alcohol prohibition, the Volstead Act, and how it came to represent a change in American society. We got rid of the Al Capones, the gangsters, the Shelton gang, all of those guys, just by legalizing alcohol once again. Back then, they had children running the buckets of beer in the city streets because, just like now, the children don't face the severe punishment that the adults do. And that's what they're doing now with drugs, is enticing your 14-year-old to go out there and haul drugs across the street or sling it on the street corner because they get the equivalent slap on the wrist, whereas adults might get 5, 10, or even 20 years for doing the same thing. So I'm asking you now, pick up the phone. I want to hear from you. Give us a call, 713-807-1794. I'd love to talk with you. You know, I debated a gentleman here in town about 2 years ago now. His name is Stan First. He heads up the high-intensity drug trafficking area for Houston. And really what that is just a pseudonym for a DEA gang, because that's what these cops pretty much work as gangs. They catch people with a little bit of drugs, and then they frighten them and force them to reveal their friend's name, force them to become snitches, and to do their bidding. And I see great parallels with the Inquisition of 500 years ago. And what we have to do is stop and think about, how will we win this drug war? How would we define success? No one ever does drugs again. We no longer arrest anybody. Little Johnny doesn't have access to a bag of marijuana. Is that possible? Is it worth spending $69 billion a year in the effort forever? I think not. We all want to stop funding Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban with monies derived from growing flowers on the mountainside, don't we? But they're currently able to do that, and they buy better weapons with which to kill our fine soldiers. We all want to stop the drug trade that sends billions of dollars to dangerous cartels in Central and South America. We want to eliminate the reason for the violent gangs that exist and prowl our neighborhoods. And we want to get rid of the street corner vendors who entice our children with these deadly concoctions that are 20, 30, 40% meth or heroin or cocaine, and the rest is some kind of household product, laxatives or even more dangerous products. After 90-plus years of failure, the U.S. currently, we are the world's leading jailer, but we currently lead the world in the use of these drugs. When binge drinking and prescription pill abuse is rampant, many times in order to foil urine tests, when preventable death, disease, crime, and addiction are just as rampant, but they're used as justification for more of the same hopeless policy, we have but to examine the evidence to realize we're 180 degrees off track. Those in positions of power who embrace the policy of eternal drug prohibition are the best friends the drug lords could ever hope for. Their work enriches Al-Qaeda and ensures continual funding for these violent gangs. Drug war is a killer. It is a destroyer of nations and basic human rights. Drug abuse is not a criminal matter. It is a medical problem. We lost the drug war on the day it began. Let us stop the lies. Let us embrace the truth. Let us do it for the children. You know, in my work, I get a chance to go to various conferences and attend meetings in D.C. and elsewhere. And I brought in a couple of pieces of tape today. 3 years ago, I went to Bolivia with a group called Witness for Peace. And we spent several days. We talked to the justice minister, the Christian minister. We toured a prison in Cochabamba that was built for about 48 people that held over 600 men, women, and children. People living underneath a rusted out roof, people sleeping on the stairwells, people dividing their prison cells in half where it had a 4-foot ceiling, and they built another cell on top of that. People trying to find any way they could. And most of these people were there for having steel wool in excess of the government mandate, for having toilet paper in excess of the government mandate. These are precursors for the making of cocaine. And the government determined that if you had too much toilet paper, you must be a drug kingpin. And these people live on 38 cents a day. That's what the government provides for their housing and their food. So you can imagine the horrors in that facility in Cochabamba. But let's go ahead and play that segment from Bolivia, and we'll talk after that. Give me a call. Welcome to this edition of The Unvarnished Truth. Today we're here in Bolivia in the middle of a Cato, which is a coca field approximately 40 meters by 40 meters, where these indigenous farmers, the campesinos, grow their coca in order to support their families. And here in Bolivia, this is not cocaine. This is sustenance. This is a very nutritious product which allows people to live at these high altitudes, to absorb more oxygen into their system, to work harder, to eat less, and to continue to live in very desperate situations. Now, a lot of folks like to use coca in a tea or in food products, but most Bolivians tend to take a small amount and basically place it between cheek and gum thusly. You don't get a rush. You don't get a feeling of being high. What it does is take away feelings of hunger and of tiredness and allow you to persevere, because these people certainly do persevere. All right, now you saw there, this was a warehouse full of tons of coca leaf. This is not cocaine by any stretch of the imagination. I mentioned earlier that some of the folks I met, everyone from the justice minister to the Christian minister to the prisoners to the prison guards were all chewing coca. Had a big wad in their cheek, just chewing it. And what it does is provide a little bit of energy, a little bit of lift, a little bit of ability to work a little harder to do your job at some high altitudes. When I was in La Paz, 14,000 feet, and we live in Houston. This is flat land. This is 60 feet above sea level here. But in La Paz, 14,000 feet, I found that I couldn't walk more than 10 steps up these, and the streets are, well, not 45, but they're 60-degree incline, and you can't walk at that altitude, not on your first days, certainly. And I found that chewing a little coca, and even had little coca candies available, but if you had that, it gave the just a little boost that gave you a little more energy. Didn't turn me into an Olympic sprinter at those altitudes, but it did help. And I guess the point is, down there they don't have the influence of cocaine. They may be involved occasionally in making it. They may be exporting it for the high dollars, the 17,000% markup that the U.S. provides. But they don't have the cocaine problem with their children. Their children may use coca, but they're not doing cocaine. And I guess what we have to do is stop and think about it. Why is coca unavailable in America? It's not habit forming, it's not addicting, it is not harmful. In fact, it is highly nutritious. So what we have to do is stop and think about, why is this set up? And it happened about 100 years ago, basically. There was a group of men who saw gleaming profits in prohibiting certain drugs. And these were the same men who had the influence and the newspapers to put forward the lies, the propaganda, that this was all necessary, that somehow they were going to protect us from ourselves. And at that time, they handed that power, that ability over to the doctors. They told them that, you'll write a prescription only when it's necessary and so forth. But over the 100 years, that power has even been usurped from the doctors now. And the DEA has basically driven the number of pain doctors from about 20,000 10 years ago to now 5,000 people left willing to prescribe these, quote, dangerous drugs. Let's talk again about how much money is involved. In the U.S., we spend about $200 billion a year purchasing our recreational drugs, cocaine, smack, marijuana, and the rest. Each year in the U.S., we spend, as I indicated earlier, $69 billion for law enforcement, prisons, probation, urine testing, etc., for waging this drug war. Now, that's a total of $269 billion a year going to criminals and cops, politicians and pot growers, opium growers, traffickers and sellers, and corrupt officials of every stripe who make their bones by being tougher, though certainly not very smart on drugs. Now, $269 billion. How can you envision such a number? How can we picture this sum? Well, first off, let me kind of outline a couple of things. First off, a cubic foot of cash in $100 bills is $2,304,000. So that represents $2.3 million. Now, a railroad car is typically 62 feet long. It's about 10 feet wide, 8 feet high. Now, each year in America, we give $69 billion to the cops, and that's enough to fill 9.6 railroad cars full with $100 bills. And each year we give $200 billion to the street corner vendor, the gangster, the cartels, and the terrorists to provide us with our recreational drugs. And that's enough cash to fill 27.96 railroad cars with $100 bills. This is enough cash every year to fill a train 2,331 feet long, stuffed with $100 bills. Now, as I said earlier, drugs are still cheaper, purer, and more freely available to our children than ever before. So that's a hell of a lot of money, isn't it? Now, where has that money gone? Is it saved in somebody's bank account? Is it buried in a mine shaft in Colombia? No, a lot of it flows back to the officials I mentioned earlier, the customs and border agents that get bribed to allow these products to cross the border. A lot of it also, though, goes to front corporations who then donate that money, contribute that money, if you will, to the campaign coffers of politicians right here in the United States so they can continue this policy. The effort wasted on this drug war is enormous. It's outrageous. Cops, sheriffs, deputies, DEA, CIA, FBI, Justice Department, state police, rangers, U.S. military, Interpol, Customs, Border Patrol, IRS agents, Forestry Service. The list is endless of those involved in fighting the first of the eternal wars, the war on drugs. Meantime, the child molesters, the rapists, the murderers, and the terrorists only have to worry about the few members of law enforcement not currently engaged in drug traffic control, an ongoing bust, escorting pot processors to jail, testifying in court, or working on some 18-month undercover investigation. Behind closed doors, and I've talked to plenty of them, these politicians, judges, and law enforcement personnel agree the drug war is a failed, hopeless policy, yet when the corporate media puts that microphone in their face and that camera in their face, they revert to cannibalism. In order for them to thrive, they can't back down now. They insist on maintaining the lie so they can continue devouring our children's lives and futures. The oil barons, I don't even want to get into that. We gave up our liberty to choose our own medicines in 1914 in exchange for supposed security regarding drugs. We're being forced now to give up additional, even unknown liberties in exchange for supposed protection. That's what this drug war is about, to protect the children, to protect the neighborhood, to protect the nation. And it has failed in every facet, every regard. Perhaps someday we'll stop arresting millions of nonviolent, mostly young Americans for baggies of flowers or other plant products found in their pockets. Maybe someday we'll find better uses for the billions of dollars we invest each year in fighting, encouraging the black market in drugs. You know, the black market in drugs is the world's largest multi-level marketing organization. It reaches into every neighborhood. It, as I said earlier, entices your children to join in the feast. You know, do $5 an hour at McDonald's, or do they want to make $500 a day dealing these drugs to their fellow students? That's what we have in place. And we've got to stop and look at it. We've got to change what we're doing. Houston, Harris County, leads the world in its incarceration rate. We have decided not to listen to the legislature, not to listen to the governor. There was a bill passed a couple of years ago, House Bill 2391, which allowed individual counties to no longer arrest, to no longer incarcerate people with less than 4 ounces of marijuana. Now, the only county that has done so is Travis County, Austin. They decided that they would forego arresting people for that. Oh, we do have a caller. What do I do here? Just hit speaker?
Yes.
All right. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, understand the lobbying group running the opposition to your point is the booze industry and the pharmaceuticals in the Partnership for Drug-Free America.
Yes, of course. They were one of the founding charitable contributions to get the Drug-Free America started was from those people.
Are you making any contact with these people and saying that their position is kind of silly? I mean, it seems like booze and drugs go well together nicely. And big pharma, don't they produce plenty of drugs to help people kick other drugs?
Well, we have a situation where they have, methadone now is the big rage, that's what you get people off of opiates with. But the truth of the matter is right now, more people are dying from methadone than from the opiate, from the heroin and, the stuff made by the cartels. It's really where the ONDCP has fallen flat on their face is the fact that they have invested billions of dollars in trying to stop marijuana. You've seen the ads, people smoking at the Jack-in-the-Box and running over a kid in the driveway, that kind of thing. And what we have to do is stop and think about it. What they should have done is focus on the important things, how to prevent overdoses, how to protect our children from the really serious drugs. And they have failed. Most people who do these opiate drugs, whether they're made by Merck or Shorty Guzman, they don't know the complications that they can run into. They don't know that you shouldn't be drinking alcohol with those drugs. They don't know that that combination is deadly. I think you brought forward a very important point. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, about the president's health care plan, I think the opposition is going to throw up all they can to stop this and, well, call off the dogs on the illicit drugs, which people self-medicate, can't afford, say, a $400 box of lidocaine patches, for instance.
Right, right. Well, and that's the whole point. We live in a society where everybody wants to be the billionaire. Everybody wants to think they can make it to the top, that they can take advantage of, you know, what's awaiting those who grab the golden ring. When the truth of it is, I quit doing audit work about 7 years ago, and I haven't had insurance. I haven't been able to afford insurance. And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that neither can millions of other Americans who will also never be able to afford that insurance. And we've got to stop believing the hype and the pipe dreams of some of these people who want us to think that we will grab that golden ring. It's not going to be there for everybody, and we do need some sort of, universal insurance in America.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, hit the button again. All right, I appreciate that call. Thank you for calling in. And it brings to mind something. We've been fed a bag of lies in so many regards over the years, you know. I mean, I don't want to go into an endless list, but, you know, weapons of mass destruction, and we'll be met with roses and greetings in Iraq and so forth. And I think the roses were reserved for when we left, actually. That's the way it's starting to look. I was talking about Houston, Harris County being the world's leading jailer. And we are. We have people sleeping all over the jails. They're sleeping under the beds. They're sleeping next to the toilets. We're shipping people to Louisiana. And again, why? Because we refuse to stop arresting people as the legislature had wanted us to. We refuse to stop jailing people as the legislature indicated we should. And why? I don't know the answer, other than it must grease a lot of wheels. It must make a lot of money for certain people, certain players here in Houston that benefit from the state funds and I guess federal funds that flow to the jails, that flow to those who run these jails. And let's stop here for a second. They used to charge $2 a minute for people to make a phone call. They still charge $2 for a little half pint of peanut butter that they sell in the commissary. They inflate these prices at the commissary, and they make money for the prison guards, for the union, for beer parties, I'm sure, during the holidays, things like that. What makes the drug war possible? What does? It's fear. Fear makes the drug war possible, and fear, if we don't address it, could make the drug war last forever. Without the superstition, demonization, and the public's blind acceptance of our venerable witch doctor's pronouncement, the drug czar's pronouncement, drug prohibition could easily be seen as the utter failure of all time. Our shaman, our keepers of the public morals, the attorneys general, the drug czar, the administrator of the DEA, these are the chief shaman, our witch doctors. And I hear we have another call. I'm going to mark this. I appreciate you calling in. And you're on the air. Hello?
Hi.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes, sir. About 3 weeks ago, I was driving in my neighborhood, and it's a known drug offender. I gave her a ride to give her some chicken, to buy some chicken. As soon as I put her in the car, policeman pulls me over, record truck pulls up, puts my car up. The policeman puts her in the vehicle. Then he comes back. He goes straight to where she hid her paraphernalia, and he lets her go, and he takes me to jail. Now, when I get to jail, I cramped up, so I lay back in the car and started crying. First of all, my purse, he sent my purse with the record driver. So I had over $800 that came up missing, my jewelry that was removed, and all that. I didn't understand, if I'm going to jail, why didn't you send my property with me? in addition to that, when I go to jail, I go to court. People sleeping on the floors, on the toilets. It was 4 days before I was even sent to classifications, where they sent me to a bed, which wasn't a bed. It was something they blue cot on the floor. In addition to that, when I went to court, the first thing they did was they offered me 6 months state jail. And when I refused that and told them, they gave me a court-appointed attorney who immediately came back and gave me a 21-day evaluation. I didn't understand what that meant. That meant I would have had to stay in jail for 21 days before, I knew anything. And then when I called the court-appointed attorney, he didn't even understand. He said someone was supposed to come back and talk to me. I bonded out.
That's the whole point of this, is to obfuscate, to hide what's really going on. This sounds to me just like a scam, like a ripoff that this cop and this record driver were doing, which is not that uncommon. Don't misunderstand. It happens all the time. You heard me earlier say these cops test a lie. They don't testify, they test a lie. They say what's necessary to convince the judge and the jury that you're guilty. A bag of drugs in itself means nothing. It means it exists. It is not a threat or a danger to any person. But if that person who got in your car and left the paraphernalia could be in on the scam.
She walked off. She walked off. He put me in the police car, and then no sooner as he took me to the city jail first. When we get there, and I'm stretching to put my legs out, there are narcotics all over the floor of his back of his car. And I told him, I said, "Hey, look, there's drugs all over the back of your car." He charged me with those also.
Gosh, I'm sorry for laughing, but that's just...
I'm serious. I go to court on the 23rd, and they're very serious about a 6-month state jail. And I agree. A pack of noodles, ramen noodles. I was very hungry. I was very starved in there. I'm diabetic. They were giving me insulin and wasn't checking my blood sugars, giving me medications. I mean, when I went in there, they told me, they asked me what kind of medication was I on. I told them I have some psych medication. They had me on Ativan and Librium. I mean, it was 10 pills on the cart. I'm student nursing. My mom's an RN. I knew full well that there were too many contradictions in the drugs. But yet and still, if you refused, then they pulled you out and put you in a cell until you took your medication.
I'm so sorry for this. Due to the nature of my work, I get several calls and emails like this every week. It just tears my heart out that I
have kids. Can you help me? I go to court on the 23rd. Do you have anybody that might can assist me or help me? Because I'm in a very bad situation. I can't laugh at it.
And I'm not meaning. I'm just laughing at the stupidity of the whole drug war, and not at you at all. All right. I'm sorry about that. No, I tell you what, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't have any attorney friends that, do pro bono work, but...
even if it's at a discounted rate, just somebody to work with me to help me. And I moved from Fresno, from Till Run. Where's the sheriff's department? I'm appalled. I lost my house in Fresno, and I'm on South Post Oak. And I mean, it's like a city under siege. You actually see addicts walking, shaking up and down the road. Everybody burglar barred up. The police are so corrupt. It's not funny. All my money came up missing, and then it took my mother 2 or 3 days to locate my vehicle. By the time she did, it was $290 to get it out of tow. Not to mention the money that I lost. And why would you take my jewelry? I'll put it in my purse and then send it off with the tow truck driver with my house keys in my car, my keys to my vehicle.
Miss, I can't promise you anything. I want to say this. My email is dean@drugtruth.net. Shoot me an email. Perhaps I can help a little. I just don't know what to say other than I am trying to...
again?
My name is Dean. It's dean@drugtruth.net. And I will see what I can do. I promise you, I don't have a lot of clout, but it irks me, and I'll see if I can't find something.
And maybe we can find out if anybody else is at the same problem with the same record truck and the same policeman.
Yes, ma'am, because I have no doubt that it happens all the time. I thank you for your call.
Okay, and I do want to say this. I am fortunate that I have my booking information where it shows that it was no personal effects with the exception of my cell phone. And then I have the tow truck log that says where it listed various items, my purse, all these things. But when I get my car is totally ramshacked, and it's all kind of things that were missing out of my vehicle.
It's not... It's a horrible story, but I'm sad to say it's just not that unusual. It happens all the time. That's the work I try to do, is to end this madness.
And I want to tell you this, too. The entire time that I was in jail, never saw a bar of soap, never bathed. It was 4 days before TB test was done, and they were pulling positive people out of the tank all the time. And I said, this is ridiculous. You have people with TB that are mixed in, and because I raised question about that, I said, well, you know, it's ridiculous. No soap. They didn't bathe you when you weren't bathed. I can't tell you the smells and the conditions inside. And not to mention there were 4 deaths while I was there. 4 deaths. One lady, they pulled her wisdom tooth, and she had an abscess, and she died. And she was in the tank that I was in.
I'm so sorry, ma'am. Do send me that email. I'll see if I can do anything at all, but we can at least talk, okay?
Okay, and I could tell you about some more things I heard in the medical department when I was there about them performing CPR on someone inappropriately, cracked a rib, which punctured their lungs, and that sent them there. They beat up one guy and fractured his arm, and if you check the hospital dates, you'll see that they had 4 people that went to Ben Taub that particular night that I'm talking about. I witnessed it, and they slammed the door shut and say, you ain't seen shit.
Okay, ma'am, we do appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Okay, please watch the language, my friends. Well, as I understand, we're going to break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Willie Nelson for NORML. For 30 years, NORML has provided a voice for the millions of Americans who smoke marijuana responsibly. More than 500,000 Americans are arrested each year for smoking pot. These are ordinary citizens like you and me, whose lives and careers are being needlessly destroyed. To learn how you can help, contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you're watching Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
All right, my friends, you are indeed watching Drugs, Crime, and Politics. My name is Dean Becker. I'm a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition and also a reporter based at KPFT Houston, 90.1 FM. I do 9 shows per week about the harms of the drug war, and we're taking your calls dealing with the subject of drug war, and I'm told we have another caller on the line. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can bring them in. Hello, sir. You're on the line.
Thank you. I'd just like to add a little bit about Harris County Jail.
Yes, sir. Please do.
I had the inconvenience of spending 15 months on there. I bonded out, and then I got picked up another charge, so they no-bonded me. And I mean, so I've been in other jails, and it was against the law in other states to sleep on the floor. And I literally slept on the floor for about 12 months, you know. And And if you wanted to get a bunk, you had to pay extortion to the guys that were in there. They were extorting people, beating people up. I also actually seen people die in there. One guy overdosed. But the only thing good about it, I hate to say, well, you get Vicodin for like, a suit, and there was Vicodin everywhere. I mean, I don't know how to get away with some of this stuff. And, I was just hoping with the Democrats coming in, maybe they would investigate Harris County Jail. But it's just, I just can't believe they get away with it. I thought maybe with Bush in there, the Republicans swept a lot of this stuff under the rug. But, we're hoping maybe with the Democrats, and I did see a headline one time in the Chronicle that they were investigating Harris County Jail, but I mean, it was just outrageous, the overcrowding and just the brutal treatment and the extortion.
Well, and as I understand it, the federal government has done a massive investigation. I'm sure on the days they inspected the jail, it didn't look quite like you're indicating. I'm sure they're shuffling people around and making it look a little better for those inspectors. But even despite that, the federal inspectors found that they were not providing adequate medical attention. They weren't providing enough guards. They didn't have sufficient intercoms. And basically that they were overcrowded to the point of being unconstitutional. What's going to happen at this point? Who knows? I mean, it's still being stifled. It's still going on, and yet, somehow it's not front page in the newspaper every day. Your thoughts?
I just, it was so much better. I finally did TDC for about 6 months and got it over with, And the other thing I also like to mention is, the court-appointed attorneys. I just thank God in heaven. I have some means. They would have railroaded me. I would have collected my Social Security in the penitentiary. And so I went and finally got $25,000 and got a real lawyer.
Yeah.
Then they were going to talk. They were like 12 years. And so I went and investigated who was the best drug lawyer, and I don't want to mention his name. After he showed up, we weren't talking 10 years. I wound up with a 3-year sentence. But I feel bad if anybody don't have money to fight these guys. I mean, I had trumped up charges on, it was just a solution with meth, and we finally did a test on it. It was like millionth of a gram in there. But if I didn't have any money, I would have probably got to 12 to 15 years. So,
what was it? An empty bag or empty pipe, basically, or?
It was a solution that was left over. It was just some water with meth in it. They said I was cooking. They never found any cooking or anything like that. And they just weighed up the water and charged me with like 80 grams of meth.
This reminds me of a story. The founder of the drug policy, of the Law Enforcement Against Prohibition organization, Jack Cole, 13 years undercover. He said back about 76, they started, really ratcheting up the efforts. And what they would do, they'd go into a house, they might find a ½ ounce of cocaine. They'd get a big bag of flour and put them both into a bigger bag and shake it up, and suddenly they had a major felony. And that sounds like what they did with your water in the millionth of a percentage.
And I just, if you don't have money, you're going to spend a lot of time in the penitentiary. And
that's it. If you're guilty until proven rich, is a phrase I like to use. Well, I do appreciate your call, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right. Well, friends, earlier I was talking about I get to do a lot of travel, visit various conventions and other meetings around the country. And earlier this spring, I was out in Oakland, California, and I got a chance to visit the Harborside Medical Marijuana Dispensary. And I'd like to show that, first off, I want to say this. We could use that in Texas. There are a lot of people. In fact, I get calls from people who are down here from New Jersey or other parts of the country visiting the Texas Medical Center. And they call me and say, my doctor indicated I should get my hands on some medical marijuana because I'm fixing to undergo chemotherapy. Can you help me? And of course, I investigate. I talk to their doctor. I find out if this is a legitimate situation, and I help them. I'm not going to say anything beyond that because I think it's the right thing to do. And if we will, let's go ahead and show that clip from Harborside Dispensary.
The main thing that voters were thinking about is that they wanted to get patients off of the street, away from potentially dangerous situations, being in alleys and dark corners and having to get their medicine that way. So our number one priority here is making sure that every patient who comes to our facility and leaves our facility is 100% safe at all times. Okay, so what we've got here is basically these are trays that are ready to go out to the dispensary floor to restock our supplies out there. And we have a variety of interesting products here. We have tinctures. We have cannabis tinctures in 3 different mediums. These are little capsules which contain cannabis. There's a variety of different capsules in various different strengths. This is another variety of capsule.
Was that a call for those babies?
Okay. This is a lozenge. This is a trichome lozenge, one of our more popular edible products.
I had one of those the other night, I think.
Yes, you did. This is a ointment, a salve, a cannabis salve, which is does not really have any psychoactive effect, but is really great for skin care and really great for muscle ache relief. It's very good for arthritis. Another variety of cannabis capsules. We've been seeing more and more varieties of cannabis capsules coming onto the market. I think that in large part is because patients are looking for a measured dose. They want to know how much cannabis they're taking each time, and this gives them more of an ability to do that. And also because it enables them to carry the cannabis and use the cannabis in places where they might not usually be able to. And here are just, we always try to encourage our patients to support the medical cannabis movement. And a part and part of that movement is really all of us coming out and claiming who we are, claiming our identities proudly, and demanding the respect that we're entitled to. This is our processing room, and a couple of things happen here. First and foremost, it's our last line of defense against anything bad getting into a package that a patient gets. This crew has eagle eyes out for anything, a stray hair in the medicine, any type of insects, anything that may have made it past any of our other inspection processes. They are on guard for here. And then, of course, there's the more basic task of just taking the medicine that's in large packages and breaking it down into smaller packages. This is a biometric lock. This lock will only open if an authorized fingerprint is placed on it. It has an optic reader that reads the fingerprint, and once you put your finger on there, the door will open. But at the same time, it records the identity of the person who passed through, and it records the time that they passed through. So if we ever did have any type of incident here, and we needed to go back, we needed to figure out who possibly could be involved if some medicine went missing, or if a patient had a complaint about something, or if we got burglarized, we would be able to go back onto our software and get a complete list of everybody who passed through those doors and the time that they passed through. This is our clone nursery. And so this is our nursery. This is where, when we intake clones, they stay here until they're ready to go out onto the dispensary floor where patients can select them. Occasionally, of course, some clones may need a little bit of tender care, and so James is here to provide that kind of care to any of the babies that may need it.
Okay, so we're going to make our way down.
You're saying this is the retail clone area?
This is the retail clone area here. So we have a separate area for people to come and make clone selections. Typically, selecting clones takes a good bit longer than selecting medicine, so we try and have a designated line for that activity. We also like to have people handling the clone sales who are well experienced in growing cannabis and can give advice to the patients who are going to be growing clones. So that's the reason that we have a designated clone station here. It is clone season. More and more people are coming in for clones because the outdoor planting season is coming up here in California. This is our healing clinic where we do our various different holistic therapies. It's in use right now. That's why you see the sign on the door. You can get a better sense of our full selection here. You can see that all of our flowers down here have THC percentages on them, which reflect our test results. And We display our test results for concentrates on this little sign here, just because there's not a real practical other way of displaying them. We've found that the percentages of THC on our flowers range from a low of around 6 or 7% to a high of around 22%. The THC percentages on our concentrates typically range from 20 to 80%, but we do have some extremely powerful extracts that have reached up to 98% THC.
98?
98%. This item here, Angela, could you hand me the EPT? This is a ether extraction THC or cannabis concentrate, and it has percentages of around 98% THC. Extremely powerful. Wow. Not appropriate for all patients because it is so strong on THC. There's some patients who find it overwhelming, and so we tend to point patients in this direction who have very, very serious chronic pain problems. These are our edibles, so you'll see we have a wide variety of cookies, brownies, and candies. But we also have caramels, honey, truffles, capsules, tinctures. We try to always have as wide a range of possible selection so that every patient can find the particular form and strength of cannabis that suits their needs most. This is the morning rush. You see, there's two things that you see going on right now. Number one, it's Tuesday. On Tuesdays, we distribute our care packages to low-income patients, and that brings about 400 low-income patients in just to pick up those packages. Right. Some of those people also purchase some supplementary medicine on top of that. And then we always do have a rush for the first hour that we're open. So you see a combination of those two things. It's not normally this busy here. We try to keep our lines down to a maximum of 3 people per station.
Are we just peasants in the field that stand for truth or forever kneel?
All right, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it's, I don't know, instructive, educational. I've toured several of the dispensaries out in California. The Harborside is perhaps the biggest and the best, the cleanest. They've got security everywhere. As you saw, they had the little finger pads for getting around inside the building. But there are literally thousands of these dispensaries in California alone. Los Angeles has more than 900 of these dispensaries. And each one of these dispensaries, as I understand it, makes about $50,000 a month. You know, that's big. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of influence. The fact is, the police can't keep up with that. The DEA can't keep up with that. It's bigger than the infrastructure can handle. So what we have to do is think about it. If we had 5 dispensaries in Houston, we would be better off, like those people that come down from New Jersey or elsewhere to, you know, that need help with their chemotherapy or pain treatment or otherwise. And the price would go down. Right now it's $35 approximate to $45 to even $65 for 1/8 of an ounce. You know, that's enough for 3 or 5 joints. It's very expensive. Truth be told, that the cost to make it might require that it be $10 an ounce, $20 an ounce at most to make this stuff. It ought to be priced about the same as coffee or tea. But because of the prohibition and the fear that this drug war engenders, it leads to this situation where patients who desperately need their medicine are forced to pay, again, black market prices for these products. Now, I want to, I don't know, what I do on a daily basis, I produce 7 3-minute pieces for my radio network, but I try to encourage you to educate yourself a little bit more. I try to embolden you to call your legislators, to write a letter, to send an email, and more importantly than all, is to visit them if you possibly can. Because behind closed doors, they're going to agree with you. They're going to understand that you see the failure of this. They're going to know that eventually, if enough people contact them, that this thing needs to end. That it has no merit. It has no reason to exist. The drug war is an absolute failure, and everybody knows it. And it's really up to you to do your part. You know, I can do these shows. I can interview the judges and the congressmen. But it really boils down to the people letting these politicians know that you know that they know that they've got to stop this madness. They've got to stop arresting generations of our children on some fairy tale, their pipe dream, that this is going to succeed. And again, it hasn't succeeded. 37 million Americans have been arrested for drugs. We've invested $11 trillion. We're empowering the terrorists, the cartels, and the gangs. It is not making any difference. We've got time for one quick call. Hello, caller.
Hi, this is William Cox. And I was calling to tell you that, man, I totally agree with what's going on and, like, everything that you're saying.
Thank you.
And, like, I just wanted to know, like, what is it that you're doing? Like, do you have anything, like, so that we can do this in Texas and that it will happen?
The sad thing is, in Texas, we cannot do a ballot resolution, if you will. We have to wait and depend on our legislators to actually implement any new changes. And that's why I'm saying you need to contact your elected officials. Tell them you understand the failure of this drug war and that you want them to redirect our efforts. That's how we're going to end it in Texas. We may be among the last states because many other states across this country, through fiscal failure and the economic collapse of the nation, realize they can no longer afford this drug war. But in Texas, we really think we can. We want to fill those prison beds and people stack them under the floor and on the toilet, I suppose. Maybe eventually we'll have them sleeping on the stairwells like they do in Cochabamba. But
yeah, I've been there.
Yeah,
promise. I've had a misdemeanor before, and it's bull, you know.
Well, it is. Mr. Cox, they're telling me I got less than a minute. I do appreciate your call. Good friends out there, look, as I'm saying, it's up to you. And one way you can educate yourself, please tune into my radio shows. They're on KPFT Radio. That's 90.1 FM right here in Houston. And go to my website. It's listed on the been listed there. It's drugtruth.net. Let's work together. Do your part, because by myself, you know, I may sound like I know what I'm talking about, but the politicians are not going to listen to just me. They want to hear from you. Please do your part to help end the madness of this drug war. It's about run its course. Understand we got just a minute left, and I want to repeat this again. The drug war is over when we cease our infantile acceptance of pronouncement from false saviors whose true desire is to forever govern our minds, our bodies, and our very lives. Thank you, and stay in touch.
Our present policy of drug prohibition is hopeless. It is hopeless. It will never get better. Literally, victory today is being defined as slowing down the pace of defeat.
We ought to listen to science and medicine when it comes to whether marijuana or any other substance has a medical benefit.
The fact that marijuana is the less dangerous drug.
We're going full-blown into a program that has failed and failed every other time we've tried it. Please point out one success in 30 years of an eradication program that has stopped drugs from coming to this country. Point out one success, because I've reviewed that research and there isn't.